Okay, we're live now. Yay.
All right.
All right, folks. Let's play that intro music.
Press the button.
It reminds me of the 70s. Yeah. Party on, Wayne. Party on, Gar.
News, tops, and a little bit of paranoia. I am Sysadmin Podcast.
Somebody always has to dance during the intro music. Today it was Marc.
Every time.
Welcome to tonight's episode of the Iron Sysadmin Podcast, folks. I'm your host, Nate, and I'm joined by Uncle Marc and a special guest, Greg, who's also a co-worker of ours. We're going to talk a little bit tonight about a topic that we touched on in our last show, and Greg had just sort of coincidentally written a blog post about that kind of resonated with me, and I think it was a really great follow-up, basically, to what we talked about last week. So I think we're just going to kind of hop right on into that, and then we'll go on with the show as normal. So contact tracing. It's kind of a hot item at the moment. It's the concept that we can track who we've been in contact with, hence the name contact tracing, with our smartphones. And then say, a week from now, I'm diagnosed with COVID-19 or God knows what else that's, transmissible amongst people. Space herpes, everyone I've been in contact with for the past, 14 days or whatever the incubation time is for that particular illness can be notified, and then they can go get themselves checked out. The things that we talked about on the last show were, this sounds like a great thing for, trying to limit the spread of a virus, but a really bad thing for privacy, because, companies wouldn't misuse that data, would they? Nobody would do that.
Never!
Oh, of course not. No,
Well, coincidentally, Greg here wrote a blog post on pretty much that exact same thing, and you proposed a couple ideas on how to possibly fix that. So, first of all, Greg, if you have any kind of an introduction that you'd like to give so people know who you are and sort of what you do and why they might want to listen to you on such a topic, right. And then we'll get into contact tracing.
Who are you and why should we care what you say?
Right.
I'm some bald guy from Minnesota. I work for Red Hat, and I think a lot of the audience here is probably close to Red Hat in one way or another. I was a Red Hat reseller before joining Red Hat in 2015, and I fill a role called TAM, Technical Account Manager, and guys like Uncle Marc and I and Nate, we take care of some of the biggest companies in the whole world. We take care of all their open source IT needs around Red Hat stuff, and so that's what I do for a living. That's my day job. And then at night, late at night, I hang out in front of the computer.
Like we all do, right?
Yeah. But what I do late at night is I do research on how to build cell phone bombs and how to poison GPS signals to hijack trucks and stuff like that. And I write novels. So there's two.
Oh.
There's a novel called Bullseye Breach: Anatomy of an Electronic Break-In. And that's a novel about a retailer named Bullseye Stores and how they lost 40 million credit cards to some overseas Russians during the Christmas 2013 shopping season.
That never happens.
I've been told that book
Total fiction
seems to come really, really close to real life. So since we're recording this for posterity, I need to always add that any resemblance to any characters, any resemblance to any real world characters is purely coincidental.
There you go.
Major chain stores that have a red symbol.
Well, it's Bullseye Stores, and
yeah.
I don't think we have. The book doesn't have a picture of a logo or anything like that, and the Target symbol on the front of the book is green.
Well, then it's totally not the same place if it's green.
Totally not. Beth Jacob was the CIO of Target stores, and she was blonde. And Liz Isaacs is the CIO of Bullseye Stores, and she's a brunette. I made sure
completely different.
Totally different.
Hello, Tiny Lager.
Yes,
Hey,
I have a visitor.
Yeah, all right. I might bring my grandson if he comes. I'll get him in front of the camera, and then Virus Bomb. Mark, I don't think you've read Virus Bomb yet.
Dude, I was actually one of the groups that you gave early access to Virus Bomb, and I was reading some pre-release copy of it.
I remember that.
And I enjoy it, but I have not read the released version of the book yet.
That's pretty cool.
Yep, the released one's got some updates.
So do you release this stuff just kind of for fun, or do you actually have like a book deal where you're actually selling these things?
I have a book deal. Well, I'm trying to sell these things. Morgan James.
That's the key, right?
Yeah. Morgan James Publishing published Virus Bomb, and it went live in 2019. Well, last year. The ebook was in February, and the physical book was in May of 2019. So you can buy Bullseye Breach or Virus Bomb from Amazon or any retailer that sells books.
I own a signed copy of Bullseye Breach, and I couldn't put it down. Greg did not pay me to say this. You gave it to me when we were both down at Red Hat for what we call Return Week, and I couldn't put it down on the flight home.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Is there an audiobook version that's narrated by you?
Not yet.
That would be so clutch. I would pay for that.
I'm a big
pay for the physical copy.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of the Dresden Files series. If anybody's familiar with those, anybody that's on the show, we talked about them quite a bit in the earlier episodes of this show.
So yes, it's Nate's family is discovering that he every so often does a live podcast.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
my grandsons come in whenever I'm customer meetings and stuff, and they come and I just get them in front of the camera and tell them to introduce themselves.
Right. So anyway, as I was saying, the Dresden Files is, if you get the audiobooks, they're narrated by James Marsters, and they are phenomenal. They add him narrating them or reading them adds so much to the story.
Now,
that
I'm going to lose a nerd point, but is he related to the Dresden Files in some way? Did he play Harry Dresden in the series?
He's an actor. I believe he was on Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Okay.
So that's sort of his the only thing that I know him from, and I didn't know that when I started listening to the audiobooks. So, but yeah, he does a phenomenal job, I think. So, anybody who hasn't read the Dresden Files and likes audiobooks, you should go look up the Dresden Files audiobooks read by James Marsters, because they're pretty awesome.
Well, we wait for Bullseye Breach and Virus Bomb read by Greg Scott to be released.
Indeed.
If somewhere between 1 and 200 people were to tell me, yeah, Greg, if you made an audiobook, for sure I'd buy it, well, then that would be a break-even deal, and I'd be foolish to do so.
Here's two
right here. And I would pay for that.
Start the tally.
It's about a $2,500 cost, which I would spend, and I would get a professional voice person to do the narrating and everything. I'd do it right. You betcha, I would. But you got to find buyers.
Well, it would have to be someone from Minnesota if it's not you. I demand the Minnesota nice things.
You got to have the right accent. Well, we don't have accents in Minnesota. Everyone else has accents.
Everyone else has these crazy accents.
I get it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, at any rate,
see how we're kind of haven't even touched the topic yet.
Yeah, right. We'll get there.
We'll get there. Yeah, I get it.
Get there eventually.
Yeah.
So, contact tracing. Right. So on our last show, when we talked about contact tracing, it basically there was a news article about how both Android and iOS were working to, or maybe have already built, a opt-in framework for contact tracing built into the operating system. And then healthcare providers, or pretty much anybody else, would then be able to interface with that API, and they could use that contact tracing data. And Mark and I both sort of fell on that sounds like a good idea, but not a great idea. And then our other co-host who was on then was Charles, and he sort of fell on the side of privacy be damned. We really need this, right? To try to stop the spread of COVID-19. And I can sympathize, but I still feel like it's a bad thing, right? Well, Greg here, you want to talk a little bit about the blog that you wrote, and there is a link for that in the show notes for anyone who hasn't read this, because they don't follow Greg's blog as closely as we do. I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to put it, if you're watching live, which I don't know that anybody is, I'm going to throw this into the chat.
Okay.
I think it's just me watching on YouTube to see what it looked like.
Okay. So just one quickie. Don't give me more credit than I'm due. I did not invent this idea. That came from Mike Bursell, who's the Red Hat chief security architect.
Okay.
And I happened to read his blog called AliceEveBob.com. And on his blog, he called for an open source version of contact tracing. If we're going to do contact tracing, make it open source. And then he had some other criteria about what would be a good design for such an application.
Well, that's it. Then you're off the show. We're going to go get him.
Okay, there you go.
And Bursell, I think, is British, so he'd be. I mean, I love the Minnesota thing, but we could have the two of you together. That'd
be great.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Anyway, if we can
away from here.
We'll get a link to that article as well, as long as it's normally public, and then I'll add that to the show notes later.
Yeah, it's public, and my blog post has a link to his blog post.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and he commented on my blog post, and we've traded emails back and forth. So we know about each other.
I appreciate your humility, Greg, but the reality is I just, in the short time I've known you relative to the rest of my life, you're clearly passionate about security and privacy and doing computers right. And I would definitely consider you a subject matter expert in this. So don't sell yourself short.
Oh, well, thanks. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I have studied, I am passionate, but
you've done more than what. You're not like Karen the anti-vax who's watched one YouTube video and now you have a medical degree,
Yeah, don't get me started on that.
Well, I've had to refute a bunch of BS paranoid contact tracing stuff on Facebook, but please don't let me throw you off the rails.
You and me both. I've got liberal friends who think COVID-19 is a conservative conservative to take over the world, and I've got conservative.
I haven't heard.
Who think
I haven't heard that side of it.
Trying to take over the whole world. So I've heard it both ways.
Well, stay tuned for the news, folks, and we're going to talk about 5G and how you can protect yourself. So.
yeah.
Anyway,
I get into some of these Facebook discussions, and I have right wingers and left wingers, and they just have at it with each other back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
My only rule is, you guys have at it as much as you want. Just keep it simple. Just keep it civil. It's all I ask.
Yeah. So the idea. So how can you describe to us, or maybe not me because I get it, but to the people viewing, how would an open source application for contact tracing be any better than a not so open source, say privately owned application for contact tracing? How would it be better?
Yeah, for the wider audience, we need to talk about what open source is, and everybody here already knows, but maybe your wider audience doesn't. And so for the wider audience, open source means just the word it says. There are people out there, if you say a technology word, they run. They close down their brains and they run. I have a friend once, I said the word protocol in a sentence. So like protocol, 1/1000. It's about 1 second. I said protocol, and she was full on with me like this. By the time I got done to all, she was turned sideways and her feet were moving. She was trying to escape the room.
It's one of them.
Yeah. So for your wider audience, forget computers for a minute. Everybody knows what cars do. Everybody in America, just about everybody in America, when they become 16, they get a driver's license. We all know what automobiles do. So think in an open source world, there would be somebody somewhere who's got the master design for the ultimate car engine, and the whole world would contribute updates and fixes and improvements and this and that and the other. And the person at the top controlling this design would accept changes and patches and put those in and then churn out new versions of the car engine. And if we decide we don't like this car engine, we're free to nominate somebody else to be the owner of the version 2 car engine, and that person could take on the best car engine. That's open source in a nutshell. That's what it is. Now, apply that to computers and software and stuff. If we had some interested party who had a passion for doing contact tracing, somebody with the right medical knowledge and somebody with the right skill coding knowledge and who wanted to take it on, and somebody who could attract a community of interested people to keep specs and keep updates and keep new things coming in, we'd have an open source piece of software. Why is that good? It's good because everybody can look at the code. Any interested party can look at the code and make updates and make changes and make suggestions. It's good because it's out in the open. The word politicians like to use is transparent. Transparency is good. Opaque is bad. If it's transparent, if everybody knows what's going on, everybody can see what this stuff does, then there's no room for funny stuff. That's the idea.
So the fear I've heard expressed by people is, well, if something's open and everybody sees the code, how can we possibly make it secure?
Yeah. Oh boy, you you knew that was going to be a lead-in, didn't you?
Security by obscurity.
Yeah. Yep. Security by obscurity is a bad thing. Alfred Charles Hobbs. That argument you just made, Mark, it's goes all the way back to 1853. And so when Alfred Charles Hobbs was a locksmith, and he figured out a way to pick all these mechanical locks. He went to this show in Britain, and they had these unpickable locks, and Alfred Charles Hobbs embarrassed everybody, and he picked the locks. So now they had to come up with better ways to do locks. Well, then he wrote a book. He wrote a book about how locks work. I tried to read the first page. I didn't get any farther than that.
Not a riveting read.
Language was different in 1853 than it is today.
No doubt.
But I quoted a couple paragraphs of his. In our language today, he caught a whole bunch of grief for publishing what used to be a secret about how locks worked, because by publishing these secrets, we're telling bad guys how to pick locks. How can that possibly be a good thing?
It's the same argument today.
Secrets. And his argument then, and it's the same argument now, his argument then was bad guys already know how to pick locks. Good guys don't know how they work. When I publish this stuff, that levels the playing field. Now everybody knows how to pick locks, and we can make better locks. And the same exact argument applies today with software as it did back in that day with mechanical locks. Just swap a few words. It's the same exact reasoning. Bad guys already know how to hurt us. Bad guys spend all day long probing us and all night long collaborating with each other to make tomorrow's probes better. Good guys isolate ourselves in these little bubbles and don't talk to each other, and that's why bad guys pick us up like what's that thing where you shoot people in the arcades? Whatever that's called. That's
whack-a-mole, or
I
was thinking like fish in a barrel, but okay.
Fish in a barrel, your metaphor. They all work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So contact tracing, we make it open. Everybody knows what this stuff does. There's no room. There's no funny stuff. There's no room for. There's no wiggle worm.
So it would be a situation where everybody who can read computer code would understand the process and the flow, but the user data would not be open, right?
Well, of course not.
Yeah.
I'm playing the dumb guy.
Right. So the user data would have to be stored in a way that's protected.
That's the whole idea. The stuff that's supposed to be private stays private, and here's the algorithm that makes it work. And the stuff that's supposed to be public becomes public when it's supposed to become public.
So here's the
specs about who can look at what when.
Right. So here's the problem that I see. Right. Writing the software is one thing. Right. Getting the software written, letting people vet the code and whatever. That's great. Right. The problem is that when someone starts using the code and starts collecting that data, who's the gatekeeper that makes sure that data doesn't later get used to sell things or, and whatnot?
Yeah, that's a problem. So Mike was sending me, there's a group out of from associated with MIT. I'll find the link in just a minute. They're actually building this stuff using an open source model. And there's a whole bunch of specs for how this data is supposed to flow that I haven't gotten into deep yet. But the fundamental thing is the data lives inside your phone. It doesn't live, not in some cloud service somewhere. It lives in your phone. If you get
that idea better immediately.
Yeah. So I have this app and the data lives inside my phone. If I get sick, I can choose to press some buttons and share that with my doctor who's got the right interfaces. That's the idea.
Hmm.
And then we have all the HIPAA stuff and all the protections that go.
Yeah,
go with
right.
that.
Hungry hippos. Hungry hippos.
Hungry hippo.
Yeah.
Yeah. The rule is I have to sing at least once per show. Ideally, it's a Disney tune. Double, ideally, it's from one of the Frozen movies. Triple, ideally, it's performed by Elsa. But so I just fulfilled the soft requirement with the Hungry Hippo song.
Yeah.
No, I love that idea because I know that Apple takes a lot of grief from people because of some of the decisions in the past and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And not many people know this, by the way, that OS 10, the original OS that goes back to was something Apple called Darwin when they first started using the BSD kernel.
Mhm.
They open sourced Darwin, like not the GUI stuff, but like the kernel and all the other stuff was open sourced in the 90s when they flipped over to Darwin.
Mm-hmm.
Random fact there, but that's not my point. The point is Apple has a very strong stance on user data and encryption, and it's a similar methodology, right? Your iMessages, the Apple's texts that you send, are end-to-end encrypted, and it relies on data that's on my phone and on the receiver's phone, and Apple themselves can't read that data in flight.
Yeah.
Or even if it's on their iCloud, it relies on keys and stuff that are on both phones that are part of the transaction.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's
Even
that's
if the
an amazing
FBI says different, and I have got a blog post about that too. Apple went up against the FBI on that issue when those terrorists in California did those terrible murders. That Apple did right.
It was hard, right? Because the law and order. It was my personal politics swing more conservative, and I'm supposed to always be for the cops in that one. I'm like, no,
absolutely not.
Apple cannot break the encryption. They cannot give backdoors.
Well, here's the thing. There's an argument about the slippery slope to terrorism with that stuff. And that argument is valid. It's a proper argument. And that's the argument that Tim Cook made in his open letter. It's a good argument. But there's another even more powerful argument. It won't do the job.
No.
Bad guys already have their own end-to-end encryption anyway.
Right.
So if we there's only two things you can do to make this responsible encryption that our law enforcement guys talk about. There's only two things you can do. You either weaken the algorithms or you share the keys. That's all there is to it. That's the only things you can do.
That's the way the technology is designed.
Yeah,
it's designed to require the keys. So it's either either need to make it breakable, which then everybody can break it, right? Or you need to distribute the keys, which makes it useless.
Right, exactly. And so you spend all these billions of dollars, you build this huge, massive bureaucracy, or maybe you have private companies that do key escrows. If you build all this stuff, bad guys won't use it. They'll just roll their own. So all it does is make the bad guys harder to find because now you don't have any way to infiltrate.
Right. You can infiltrate all the law-abiding citizens, but you can't infiltrate the bad guys. Right, Therefore, you haven't really gotten anything done.
Yep. So it's slippery slope to terrorism, and it won't work anyway. So if you want to do solutions to computer crime and child porn and terrorism and all that nasty stuff, if you want to solve that problem, let's find solutions that are really going to work, and not solutions that pander.
Pander. That's a good use of the word pander.
Yeah.
Yes.
Those are the bears that eat bamboo, right? Pander bears.
Yeah.
The pander bears.
Only in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Oh, I feel like I've been personally attacked because now I live in Pennsylvania.
I had some buddies from Harrisburg. Ours were W's, and all the uhs ended in ers.
That's awesome.
That's not everywhere in Pennsylvania.
No. Pennsylvania is a big commonwealth. I'm basically in Western New Jersey.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. So you had a train of thought. It was an excellent train of thought about what open source is and why would we need to open source contact tracing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a compelling argument that if everybody can understand the algorithm, but the data is made private by well-known encryption routines and whatnot, so that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So your blog is titled "Contact Tracing 1984 or a Great Tool? What's it going to be?"
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so what are some circumstances where it becomes a nightmare 1984 scenario versus, hey, it's a great tool that's used responsibly? So play those scenarios out for me, G. Scott.
The 1984 scenario, I think everybody could already visualize it. Somebody,
I certainly can.
yeah. We've developed this application that we want the population to use. We want you to install. Anybody that has a cell phone, we want you to install this in their phone. We're gonna compel Google and Apple to integrate this stuff into their OSs, and it's just going to work. And it's for your own safety, people. You will install it, and you will not disable it. That's a 1984 thing. I might be one of the first to carry a protest sign if somebody wants me to do an app like that. You want to carry that to its logical extreme, to its really ridiculous logical extreme. Everybody will implant an RFID tag in their right hand or on their foreheads, and then we'll put RFID readers everywhere. So then we know where you go and when you're there and how long you stayed and all that stuff. It's super easy to track. And anybody else that was in that neighborhood, if you get sick, it's easy to find. It's just one big database and some Boolean logic. So we can if you get sick, we can track everyone that was close to you. So just snap in this RFID tag. It's only a few pennies. It's economical. What's the deal?
Yep. I like your subtle Book of Revelations reference there. The right hand or the forehead.
Revelation chapter 13.
But I mean, the funny thing is that conspiracy theorists have been talking about that exact same thing forever. I mean, just forever.
There's a company in River Falls, Wisconsin that does vending machines. And the CEO of this company the employees of this company proudly injected these things into their body so they could wave their hand over a vending machine and buy stuff.
Yep.
I have a blog post about that too.
I saw one where they're using it for door access readers as well. It's in your hand. You just scan it. In fact, folks in the security industry have NFC or RFID implanted in their hands at like DEF CON and whatever, because they can use that as a place to store data when they're out on a pen test engagement, or if they want to scan someone's device or whatever, right?
Well, the RFID tag is just as simple. It's all it is a thing with a serial number.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, NFC, you can write to NFC, and depending on how much storage is in your NFC chip, you can store a couple K of data. Or there's certain exploits for things like Android, or maybe there were at one point, where you could put malicious code in that NFC tag, right? And then when an Android phone gets close to it and scans it, it automatically exploits the phone. Right? Which is like, this is a thing that people are doing because they work in an industry where that is considered a useful tool, right?
Yeah. No.
But to chip the entire public, right? That's a whole other case.
Yeah. 7 billion chips. You know what? It's a super useful tool. But no one's going to put one of those things inside my body.
Yeah, right.
And I hope all your listeners, I hope all your viewers, I hope the same thing. You just don't do that. So the both the flaw and the convenience in contact tracing via a mobile device is that I can leave my mobile device at home, or I can stick it inside of an RF or sort of looking for one of those
Faraday cage pouch, right? So that it can't read or can't send or receive any data, right? Yep. And these are things that people that are uber paranoid do. They literally do that.
If there was some mandatory contact tracing directive, I might consider doing something like that too.
Right.
But if it's voluntary, if it's voluntary and it's open source and it's transparent and they prove to me that I can trust it, then I'll do it for my own good.
So it would be tough to make it mandatory because it's not mandatory to own a cell phone.
Exactly. That's the flaw, right? And then of course you'll get the complaints that people who are underprivileged can't contact trace even if they want to because they can't afford a cell phone, right?
Well,
so that's another issue.
The government could always issue one. We've got
We've got
Wi-Fi everywhere.
Yeah.
Cell phone. You walk into a Wi-Fi hotspot. Your cell phone identifies itself. There's software. There's software in the controller somewhere. There's a server someplace in the cloud somewhere. You could see that happening.
I could also imagine
cell phones for people, and even now.
I could imagine a small pocket-sized device that they could issue as well that just does the contact tracing that you keep in your pocket, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's technologically feasible. I'm sure if an actual concrete proposal like that came out, I'm sure there would be a lot of intense discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
You guys realize this all feeds right back into the Bill Gates conspiracy that everyone's throwing around right now, right?
Oh yeah, Bill Gates he's trying to develop a vaccine to take over the world.
Right.
well, the problem is this stuff is hard and it's nuanced when you're talking about it among people who actually are technology people. I don't like to gatekeep often, right?
Mhm.
And I believe that most people have enough common sense that if you sit down and explain something to them, you can give them enough understanding so that they can understand a concept. That being said, there are some truly stupid people that I'm Facebook friends with that I have had to just outright say, no, you don't understand. That's not how contact tracing works, and it's not even live. Here's an actual PC World article written in nice layman understandable terms that says how this will work. And they're still like, well, but my friend who I saw this posted and shared, so I figured it had to be true. No,
Right.
You're an idiot.
Right.
I'm pretty sure I had someone block me.
But you know what? That is
At least one
that
person.
is such an
I'm
easy
proud of it.
trap. It's such an easy trap to fall into, and
It's
even
a trap!
even I've run into it, right? You wake up in the morning, your eyes are still pasted over because you were asleep. You pick up your phone to see what came in overnight. Somebody shared an article that really rings true with your own beliefs, and you want it to be true, so you share it.
Oh yeah.
Right? And then you have a dozen people on one side or the other rain down on you with fact check links.
Rain down fire and hell. Bring them fire and hell.
Yeah. And it's like even if you try to be responsible, it's really easy to fall into that, right? So, some people get labeled as, oh, these people are morons, they'll believe anything. But realistically, it's really, really hard.
So there's an easy way to prevent that feeling of I'm an idiot because I shared something stupid. And that is you share only memes of the screaming ladies and the cat.
There you go.
You share jokes about D&D or whatever the hobby is you're doing, or you post pictures of the meat you smoked or screenshots from your Animal Crossing or game of choice.
You can certainly do that.
Play it safe.
Do that.
Mark, you're not play it safe kind of a guy.
Sometimes I like to stir the pot, but there's a reason that the cadence of my political post is down to about one every 6 months.
Yeah.
Because I'm like you. Because of the circles I run in, I have people who are on extreme sides of both of the major political spectrums. Including various family members who I love and respect too much to end up hating over stupid Facebook stuff. So I just find it's better to not tread in certain waters. And Facebook, to me, I long for the day that I can get off of it. But much like Michael Corleone in Godfather 3, which was itself a movie that split people, they keep pulling me back.
So we were about this close to the topic tonight being about how to ditch Facebook, but with the folks who ended up hosting, which would have just been me and Mark, because I wouldn't have thought of inviting you, Greg, to talk about that. I don't think there would have been much discussion because Mark and I are both in the same boat where we don't really love Facebook, but we're kind of stuck there.
It's human nature. It's not a technology thing. It's a human nature thing.
But that'll probably be a future show, folks, when we can get Jason and Charles both on here who have varying levels of success with avoiding Facebook. So
Greg Scott, give me your Minnesota guy observation on the people who are railing against the evil government trying to control me with contact tracing when they themselves are feeding the Facebook and social media monster with every detail of their personal life. There's got to be a diatribe in there somewhere from you.
Well,
Are you a hypocrite if you're a Facebook addict but hate contact tracing?
So yeah, I put a paragraph about that in my blog post because it just.
Oh, I must have forgotten that paragraph.
No, you did not. You're just baiting me because you knew I said it.
I'll take the credit, but I legitimately forgot because I'm old.
Oh, okay.
And I'm drinking moonshine.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, old. Yeah, all right. Yeah, you're old. Okay. So I have Facebook friends who believe all across the spectrum, and some of my more conservative friends think that this whole COVID-19 thing is just a bunch of stuff stirred up by the liberal mainstream media and a bunch of liberal government officials who want to control the population. And so if they had their way, just open everything up, forget all this quarantine crap. All it's doing is hurting the economy and turning us into wards of the state and welfare recipients and stuff, which is what they want. And so that's one end of the continuum of the spectrum. And the other end of the spectrum is Donald Trump is an awful human being, and anything he says is a lie. He all he wants to do is make himself rich and make his rich big company buddies richer and kill all of us poor people by keeping us isolated from each other. I do have people who haven't thought it through about contact tracing versus sharing all their details inside Facebook. And I might be one of them because I share a lot of stuff inside Facebook, but I realize that I choose to share stuff inside Facebook, and I try to be careful with what I share because I've been around enough computers that I know if I put some stuff on a website someplace, sooner or later the whole world's going to find out about it.
Sure. I try to tell my scouts and my kids that once something's on the internet, it's not private.
Right.
In fact, my daughter Maggie was annoyed because she felt my wife was stalking her because my wife is on her phone looking through Maggie's Twitter account.
And she's
like, and well, she's 22, 23, whatever.
That's all right. She's still mom.
And Maggie's like, I should block her. I'm like, okay. But then she gets mad. I'm like, but that's my Twitter account. I'm like, well, but you put it on social media. It's doing public, exactly. Yeah. You can't be mad that somebody is looking at stuff you've put on social media, especially if you're not blocking them.
Yeah.
So it struck me as funny. And she just was getting frustrated with me because I made sense.
My daughter is 34 years old. I look at her stuff, and some of the things I don't like, I go downstairs and I say, Red, get rid of that. And she yells at me and I say, I don't care if you don't like it, get rid of it.
So Greg, you started going down a path that really resonates with me, and it's really the sort of the place that I landed when we talked about it in our last show. Mm-hmm. And that is that, yes, there is a lot of my data, or a lot of data that maybe I don't even realize is on Facebook, and I've chosen to be there. But the big difference between that and contact tracing is that I've chosen to be there.
Right.
I've chosen to put it there, right? I've put that data out there. Now, yes, Facebook does a lot of tracking, and they try to see where you've gone on other pages, and I put in efforts to try to block that, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With contact tracing, it's at face value, right? If it's doing exactly what it was designed to do, I think it's a benefit. I think it's a good thing that, you can sort of identify whether you've been in contact with someone who was eventually diagnosed with either COVID or any other disease that's easily transmissible. Mm-hmm. The thing I worry about is what else happens with that data, and that's it's the same case where I've opted to give data to Facebook, and then Facebook is using that data for things that maybe I don't agree with, mm-hmm. right? It's really the same deal, except in this case, I think that who you've been in contact with is much, much, much more sensitive, and stuff, what websites you visited or where what pictures you've chosen to share or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And it's data on people that's not me, and they haven't chosen to share any of their contacts with me, but yet it's out there anyway for anybody to steal.
Right.
That's why open source. That's why open source is good. That's a have your cake and eat it too scenario if it's done right. And the way you make it done right is transparency and have lots of eyes on that code. And lots of eyes on that code and lots of eyes on the processes for what we do with that data. So it's more, you're right, it's more than just code. There's processes and procedures and stuff like that too.
Right. Now, if the code's designed to do things like protect that data at all costs and keep it on your local device until you've chosen to share it, then that's actually about as much of a safeguard as you can expect.
Yeah.
For that data, right? Because it's on your thing, your device at that point. It's not shared with anybody unless you choose to share it, which is, that could be good.
And I'd want to know the path to it. What directory does this stuff live in on my phone? I would want the ability to inspect it myself before I send it out. I might not care a whole lot, but I'd probably want to look at it once or twice before using it for real. Just proper due diligence.
Yeah, and if it's open source, you can probably get that information.
Yeah, and the data itself. What stuff is on my phone about me? And I could. Yeah. I want to be able.
But I mean, you could learn where it is by looking at the code. Is what I'm saying.
Sure.
Learn where your phone stores it, what it's storing, what it's going to share when you try to share it, that kind of stuff.
Bonus points if it's documented.
That never happens.
No, all open source developers are just wonderful at documentation. They live to write documentation. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Totally.
I think you misspelled terrible there.
Yeah, I'm going to go get some green cheese off the moon now.
All right, so I think we've talked at length about contact sharing, contact tracing.
Yeah.
And maybe it's time to move along into the next part of the show. What do you think?
Works for me.
All right. So you probably don't know this, but there's a button I pressed that does some transition music. So here we go.
All right. Mark, you got to dance.
I'm just doing the head bob.
Okay. Party on, Wayne.
Party on, Garth. Nate's like, you're not supposed to talk over the music.
Stop talking over the music.
Did we violate protocol?
Out of the room. I don't know if there is protocol.
I don't know about protocol. I don't know that we have much in the way of protocol here.
All right.
So, at any rate, let me move along into our middle section of my show notes here. So, in the way of announcements, all I've really got is our usual call out to our patrons, of which there are still 14, and I talked about them in the last show, but I'll run through the whole list again. This is basically people who were patrons as of the end of April, which is the last time Patreon actually charged patrons. So we'll update this list at the end of May. I realize that I'm just basically repeating it if I try to pull the new list every time. Anyway, all right. So thank you to Andi, Jay, who's also known as Jason, the co-host, Marc with a K, Julius, sogwtf, who's a friend from the DEF CON 610 group that I help run, Marc with a C, who happens to be hi, Marc.
Oh, hi.
Charles, our co-host, Linux 666, which is just an awesome name. Ryan, the gimpyb, Jason, who's not the co-host, John 22532, who is still our longest running patron. Thank you for that. And DeMentor, who we've had on the show in the past. So thank you all for being patrons. Unless I miscounted, there's 14 of you, and we're making about $70 a month, which is pretty good. Pretty good. That money it now has a destination. I'm starting to save for a new streaming device, a mixer that integrates the recorder and the soundboard and whatnot, which should help improve the quality of the show. At least I hope it will. Costs about, $500. So it's going to take a little while, but I'm contributing a chunk of my own money as well. So it's not just patrons that are paying for it. So that'll be probably in a couple months. I'll be able to afford that thing.
We should kick some of the $34 billion from the IBM deal over to it.
Yeah.
Totally. Red Hat should sponsor this podcast by simply buying me a new mixer.
Yeah, we have that money in a pile in a closet somewhere.
I'm sure. That's exactly where that is. So, thank you again to the patrons. That's cool. No new reviews this week, or these 2 weeks, unfortunately. Folks, go ahead and review the show. We like reading reviews on the show. It also gives us some direction as to whether you guys like what we're doing or not. And that's kind of it for announcements. I don't have anything else that's coming up. No events or anything because everything's canceled because of the COVID.
We have a viewer in chat.
We do. Hi, Marc.
Marc with a K. Hi, Marc.
Oh, there. Oh.
You're my
buddy.
favorite customer.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, hello, doggy.
Actually, we did this. I did this with a customer. You could. We have monthly what we call KCA lunches. KCA stands for Kick COVID with Attitude, or you can swap in whatever you want to swap in for the A. And what we do the tech. We all eat lunch at the Texas Roadhouse Steakhouse, and so I've got some guys in Charlotte, North Carolina, and some people in Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm in Eagan, Minnesota, and I've got another guy in St. Paul and somebody else in Blaine, Minnesota. And I think we're going to have some people from California on this next one. They won't eat lunch; they'll eat breakfast. But
so, do you all go to your respective Texas Roadhouses and get on a video call? Please tell me that's how this works.
Curbside pickup, and we come home and get on a video call.
That's perfect.
and then everybody eats. And I buy the gift card and turn that into my expenses. So that's my restaurant receipt. And then everybody eats. Cool. Everybody charges their food to the gift card. So it's a business lunch. It's a real business lunch.
That's pretty cool. Legit. That's a good idea.
Legit.
It's a good idea.
I have a blog post about that too.
I get the feeling that you write a lot of blog posts, man.
I try to, yeah.
He's a writer for sure.
I write quite a bit, but it seems like you got me beat.
One day when I grow up, maybe I'll make money from writing. Maybe one day.
Maybe.
There you go. Man, content creation is a very fulfilling hobby of mine. It's not one that pays any bills.
It's also a ravenous beast that wants to consume whatever it can get its mouth on.
Yes, it does. It does. And
as I found out when I blog for Red Hat, it's like, it's a never ending. Just wants more content.
Well, no. So the thing I found anyway is once you've started creating content, you keep finding other avenues to create in, right? So like I've got this show, I've got writing I do for Enable Sysadmin, I've got writing I do for my own blog, I've got writing I've done for 20 years on my Jeep site, right? And then I've got the YouTube channel in which I share my Jeep stuff with the world, and there's probably others I can't even think of at the moment where it's just like. Once you start making things that people seem to enjoy, it just feeds back into you and you want to make more, right?
Yep.
Before you know it, you're just like making stuff everywhere.
use fiction to produce truth better than the news. Too.
Yeah, right. So it's almost thankless. Sort of like being a sysadmin, which I think is what this show is about.
Oh, I gotta show you something. You guys are gonna like this. Sure. Just give me a second here. This is here. This is okay. So I Virus Bomb. That's the cover, and it's kind of a book plug, but it's not really. So this went live in 2019, but it took a long time to write, and so I should show. I didn't know what an epigraph was. An epigraph is like a quotable quote, that somebody famous said. So okay. I made up my own epigraph. Let's see if there, right there. Is it blurry?
It's blurry. I see the word job.
An IT professional's job is like stocking toilet paper. Nobody cares until there's an outage.
That's good.
That was 2018.
That's good.
And then you're an audience of sysadmin, so then I'll show you the dedication page too. To the unsung heroes. There. To the unsung heroes on the IT front lines who work day and night to keep us safe. May we heed their advice.
Just
There,
listen to what I tell you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Just-
that's on full screen there. There you go.
Yeah, so those of you on the stream should be able to see that a little better now.
Okay. There.
So
There.
Very
So
cool.
sysadmin should. So if you're a sysadmin, you really, really, really want this book.
yeah, you should go buy Greg's book. It's
There's
totally
my-
not a plug, but it's a plug.
It's a non-plug plug.
It's
Yeah,
a
and
non-plug plug.
You'll like Jerry Barkley too. He's a bald-headed independent IT contractor from Minnesota. Can you believe it?
Where did you get the inspiration for that?
We don't even know.
Are you
Don't
well, Jerry Barkley has a family, and his kids are going to grow up, and they're going to have kids, and those kids are going to grow up and have kids. There's going to be a few generations until we get to the 24th century. Theoretically, yeah. And then there'll be kind of a guy with some quirks who does some engineering work on a starship.
Are people going to call him Broccoli?
Possibly. This is all in the future, so we don't really know. There's different versions of the future.
That's a perfect tie-in.
Oh, man.
So anyway,
He will irritate a Klingon security officer.
and Wesley Crusher.
Oh yeah.
Wesley, get off my ship.
Wow.
So there are a couple Star Trek references in there. There are, because
No doubt.
As
Jerry
there
Barkley is a Star Trek fan.
as there should be.
Yeah, you betcha.
So at any rate, this is the part of the show where we just talk about things, as you may have noticed.
Now we chat.
Yeah, Mark, I see you've put something that sounds kind of interesting in the notes about something you've been toying with.
In
while you're
these
stuck at home.
trying times, yes. So right before all this junk with COVID went down, my wife and I did a second honeymoon. We did a couple of days down in Disney, and then we did a Disney cruise. This was at the beginning of March before we realized exactly how bad it would be. And then in 2018, I took the whole family being me, my wife, and the 4 kids to 5 days at the Disney parks, and it was amazing. And then we did a Disney cruise in 2019. So the point being, I'm one of those guys who's become a bit of a harder core Disney fan as an adult. Let it go. Oh, so anyway,
Here it goes.
so it turns out there are these, and I say lunatic in a good way. There are these lunatics who use this little program called Minecraft that you might have heard of.
Maybe.
And if you've never heard of Minecraft, it's essentially like, think of like it being a Lego block game, but you can run around inside of it and you can build whole worlds with bricks. And who am I kidding? If you're listening to this podcast, you know what Minecraft is. If you don't know what Minecraft is, use the friggin' Google and find out. I mean, the game just celebrated its 11th anniversary or something. Like your 5-year-old cousin plays friggin' Minecraft on his mom's phone. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
My 8-year-old grandson plays Minecraft on his mom's phone.
Yeah, my kids both play Minecraft. So yep.
But Minecraft started on the PC, right? And the original Java version, until it forked when Microsoft bought it, you had just the Java version, and now they have what they call the Bedrock version, which is a different engine, which is gaming terminology for all the code in the back that makes it run. But the Java version has always been very friendly to people who want to modify the game.
Mm-hmm.
They can basically write their own custom graphics and sounds and code to plug into the game so that you can have a different experience than the stock Minecraft. Now, where I'm going with this is that there are multiple projects that are actually doing this, but my current favorite one is called MC Parks. And I put the link in the show notes. It's mcparks.us. They're doing a block by block, 1-to-1 size build of all the Disney parks. So they've got Magic Kingdom, they've got Epcot, they've got Animal Kingdom, they've got Hollywood, they've got the Universal stuff too, Universal Studios, they've got Disneyland in California, and California Adventure, and they're actually operational rides. Like not all the attractions are live, but like I can go to Epcot and go to Norway, and that's where Frozen Ever After is, and I can run through the line queue and hit a button which will spawn a ride vehicle, and I can actually hop in the ride vehicle, and a soundtrack plays through a web server if you attach the auto server, which is the music and sounds from the ride. You can hear the guests who were on it at the time, and all the stuff on the ride is like animated, like the block figures is like Elsa and Anna and Sven the reindeer and stuff. And you basically go on the ride. They got that. They got Pirates of the Caribbean. They got Space Mountain, the Seven Dwarfs thing, and so with not being able to go to Disney in real life for I don't know how long, a lot of people will use this as a way to kind of visit the park. Well, they have every night at 9:00. They have the fireworks show, Happily Ever After.
My gosh!
If you've never seen that, in the parks, it's amazing. They do laser projection on the castle. They have like the actual characters projected on the castle, animation and stuff, and fireworks going along with it. It is unbelievable. They've recreated that fireworks show down to they've been going for over a decade. They're not going to be taken down. Yeah,
right back. My wife's yelling at me. 1 second.
I see Daniel's comment. There's been too much publicity. Disney is not taking them down if they haven't already.
Right.
So they do the fireworks show. Yeah. Well, there's a how this fits in. This is cool enough on a monitor. Well, Vivecraft is essentially the community version of the Minecraft engine, plugins and whatever into the Java whatever that supports virtual reality. And I have an HTC Vive headset, so I think you can see where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
I can now throw on my headset and ride these rides as if I'm in the park and be lying on my office floor watching the fireworks show every night if I want to. And yeah, it's not, I mean, it's like I'm there in the sense that the audio is flawless. Yes, it's Minecraft, so it's blocky, but the brain is fooled enough that I find myself having the same emotional reactions to the fireworks show that I have when I'm there. It's actually pretty cool. It is cool.
That's pretty cool.
Now, maybe I'm just going crazy because of the lockdown and stuff, but it's.
Well, no, I mean, there's a reason that when we got locked down, I started looking at VR headsets because I sort of foresaw that we were all going to start going crazy being stuck in the house. And I was thinking, especially for the kids, who, like, initially it was like, can they go outside and ride their bikes in the alleyway? Like, I'm not sure. Or are they going to get are the cops going to come and drag my kids back into the backyard? Turns out that wasn't the case, right? Yeah, but it was a concern I had. But I mean, virtual reality is a great way to sort of get out of the office that you're in without having to leave the office that you're in, right?
Right. So as a nerd for a long time, the holodeck was always one of my favorite Star Trek technologies, right?
Yes, me too.
That always fascinated me.
And not for the creepy reasons.
Yeah, they were just bonus, right?
Yeah.
And there's a reason Ready Player One resonated with a lot of people.
Yes.
And virtual worlds have always been a hobby of mine, mostly in the form of MMOs, but I ran a Minecraft server for friends and family quite a few years back. I ran a persistent world using Neverwinter Nights back in the early aughts. So to me, virtual reality and virtual worlds have always been a fascinating topic.
Yeah.
So to be able to virtually go to Disney when I want to, even though it's imperfect, it's a really kind of cool escape that the technology can help. And honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that expensive, right? And I say that as a guy with a well-paying job who built a gaming rig.
With a VR headset.
That was probably the gaming rig itself probably set me back a little over $2,000 a couple of years ago. The VR headset with all the accessories, that was probably close to 6 or 7 because I got extra stuff with it. Yeah. 600 or 700, but
not grand.
Oh,
Though you
no,
can spend that
6,700.
much.
You can spend that much.
When I started looking at VR headsets and decided eventually not to buy one because I thought it would be just too much of an impulse buy, I did go all the way off the deep end and I found these like immersion rigs, not quite immersion rigs, but where it's like you got this omnidirectional treadmill you stand on and it's got like handrails that you can hold on to, and it literally you can walk within VR with these things, and they were like $7,000-8,000.
Yeah,
but they were pretty cool.
Your own holodeck.
I have a piece of software that cost me $15 that integrates with most VR titles that lets me use my wands to swing my arms to do walking, and you just move, you walk in place, and it feels like you're walking.
That's cool.
So some games do that natively too, but for games that don't, like Skyrim VR doesn't do that natively, but with natural locomotion, I can be running through the world of Skyrim.
And getting an arm workout at the same time.
Getting an arm workout at the same time. And there's something to be said about standing next to like a Nord warrior and trying to look him in the eyes because he's actually taller than you. And you're like, wow, this is completely different than like being a flat screen experience. It's something else.
Right. Right.
So that's been my I've had a couple of cool escapes lately. There's that, and the other favorite thing I've been doing virtually is obviously the thing that you and I were talking about last time, where we're playing D&D using Roll20. That we did a whole episode about it.
Yeah, but we did.
We had the third session this last week, right?
Yeah, it's a good time.
Yeah.
Having fun.
And so that was on Tuesday, and it was today I found Gary Gygax's old Harlot table that he created for the first Dungeon Master's Guide, which I really could have used on Tuesday because of the shenanigans Ryan was pulling.
Yes. Freaking Sergio.
Yeah, Sergio. Sergio's a bard, and let's just say Sergio rolled a natural 20 when he told me he wanted to go seduce some women. So, well, the rest of the party was doing important research and trying to figure out how to find these catacombs to get this this amulet. Sergio was having adventures of a different kind.
He was also looking for lasagna, though.
And lasagna. He found a nice mutton. He did not find lasagna.
Because lasagna didn't exist in the Forgotten Realms, or your own world that you've created either.
Nordock is not the Forgotten Realms, but lasagna, as far as I know, exists in neither. But that's fine.
Yeah. EMC takedown in 3, 2, 1.
Well,
yeah, right.
Yeah, Disney does sometimes.
Indeed, they do.
But the MC Parks has been going for, I think, since at least 2013, and they've been featured. They've been featured in a lot of places. I can't believe the mouse doesn't know about it, and I guess they just don't see an issue.
I'm gonna have to check that out and see if my kids will enjoy it. I guarantee. I'll have to check it out.
And you don't need VR to enjoy it. Don't get me wrong.
Right,
You absolutely all you need is the Java version of Minecraft. That's it. It won't work on devices, right? That don't run the Java version. So
we run the Java version because I run a server on a basement on a machine in my basement, so they they have their own little persistent world to be doing stuff in without worrying about internet assholes.
Well, there you go. So you're already set. I think because you guys just did Disney, right? They'd get a kick out of it.
Yeah, they would. That's what I'm thinking. I'm gonna have to check this out. So I've been doing nothing all that technological. I'm actually in the process of slowly dismantling my Jeep because I have to do some work to the engine.
Is this the Jeep that the door wouldn't open when we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I fixed that though. That was a real pain in the butt too.
Once it stopped.
Right. So I have to feel that the mouse knows about it and just isn't stopping it.
Yeah, we have to hope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have the engine in the Jeep has been slowly marking its territory everywhere I go by leaving little droplets of oil everywhere.
That's bad. Okay.
It's been doing that for a long time, and I finally decided, you know what? I can't go anywhere anyway. Now's the time to fix them. So yeah, the Jeep is half disassembled and on mobile at the moment.
How's the door?
The door works. I fixed that within a week or so of when that happened.
Oh, that's good.
I mean, I kind of had to. It was the driver's side door wouldn't open.
Oh yeah,
makes it hard to get in and out of the Jeep.
Yeah, that was a good plan. Ooh, that's the moonshine, I think.
I know a guy once almost died in a Jeep. I should tell you you want to hear my Clayton Oosterhouse story?
just because of his name, Clayton Oosterhouse.
Yeah.
I think
I mean, it
I know the
sounds-
villain for my next chapter. In
It
Nordheim.
sounds. It does. Does this?
Oosterhouse.
Yeah.
Does this
Gotta
start
write
out
that
like a Rose from Golden Girls story?
No, nothing that dramatic. So way back, a long time ago, when dirt was young, back in Crawfordsville, Indiana, and I worked at this Chevrolet dealership called Herman Davis Chevrolet. Dan Stetler eventually bought out Herman Davis, and Herman Davis retired. But this is before Herman Davis retired.
He's rambling already.
He is.
I know. He was first set.
We have the whole lineage of these people now.
Yeah.
He's totally Iron Sysadmin material.
Yeah. So we have this.
Anyway.
We have this Chevrolet dealership in Crawfordsville, Indiana, and there's a cleanup shop in Ladoga, Indiana, about 30 miles away, because everything.
Ladoga, it was 30 miles away.
Yeah.
All right.
Everything's
map.
30 miles away from everything in Indiana. And so that's part of what got me through college was parking. When you line up used cars in the parking lot and they're different makes and models and stuff, and you want the rows to be straight, the way you do it is you line up the door locks.
Mm-hmm.
All the door
Makes
locks.
sense.
Yeah, because the bumpers everything's gonna be different because they're different makes and models. So you line up the door locks, and that's how you get the rows straight. It takes a while to get that down, but you look down and make sure the door locks line up. So part of my job was when these used cars came in, part of my job was to drive the car up and down the street and get a feel for what's wrong with it and then write it up for the mechanics to go fix. And so I drove some pretty cool cars. There's some Corvettes and different things like that. But then the other part of my job was we would caravan to the cleanup shop in Ladoga, where they would detail the cars, vacuum up all the kids' crap and whatever else is just clean up all that stuff and get the car ready for sale. So, and Dick Dale was the used car manager. And we were on a caravan to Ladoga one day, and Clayton Oosterhouse was in front of me in a Jeep.
Clayton Oosterhouse.
Yeah, and this
We've
big.
gotten to Clayton. Okay.
Yeah, that's how Clayton fits in.
We've met a half a dozen other people so far whose names Greg remembers perfectly. I can't remember what I had for lunch today, but he remembers names from however many decades ago.
Well, you'll get why Clayton Oosterhouse. It's hard to forget him. He did.
With a name like that.
Yeah, that was part of it, and he had a unique personality. That was one word.
Much like his name.
Yeah, and I had to help him read, but other than that, he was pretty good, except for reading and writing and stuff like that. Other than that, he was okay. And he had some strong opinions about stuff that we talked about every once in a while. If he yelled at the car loud enough, he thought he could make it start. And
How did he feel about 5G?
there was barely touch tone phones were a big deal in that era.
Yeah.
Dirt
Okay,
was
anyway.
fun in those days. I don't know if Clayton's still alive or not. He was on a path where he wasn't going to live as many years as me. And so we on Ladoga Road, there's these S curves. So we head out towards Ladoga and these S curves left and right. This was in January, and Clayton's in front of me in a Jeep. I'm following behind in a Chevy Monza, and Dick Dale's behind me in a Cadillac, because Dick is the used car manager, so he always drives a nice car.
He is the Cadillac. Okay.
Yeah, he had the Cadillac.
Funny how that works.
We come around these S curves, 35, 40 miles an hour, something like that, and the rear end broke loose on this Jeep. And it went around 180 degrees, and it smashed into a snowbank on the side. And then there was a snow explosion, and the Jeep came out the other side of the snow explosion and bounced upside down on its roll bar. It hits the roll bar.
There's a reason they have those.
Yeah, well, that's right. It hits the roll bar, flips in the air, and landed on its wheels on top of the sign, on top of one of those metal signs that says "Williams Pipeline, don't dig here." Natural gases.
Wow.
And so I thought Clayton was as dead as could be. So I pulled up behind, I run through the snow, and I roll down the window. Clayton, are you all right? And he's on the driver's side. He's got one leg like this over on the passenger side. His arms are sprawled out, and the other leg like this, kind of stuck on the dashboard. And the glass is all around him. Clayton, are you all right? And I grab him a shake, and he opens one eye, and he says, "Oh," well, I can't repeat what he said, but he said, "Oh, F word." And so then I knew it was okay. He walked away. He wasn't even hurt. His brain,
Yeah?
he wasn't even hurt. He wasn't hurt at all.
I mean, he's lucky, right? Because
yeah, that's one word for it.
If you're talking about the era of Jeep that I think you're talking about, they were really easy to spin and really easy to roll over.
1979. Well, there's more to this. We towed the Jeep the rest of the way to the Ladoga car shop.
Now, this is a customer's Jeep?
No, it used to be. It was
going to be.
Right, it was
sold. It was sold to the dealership. You weren't taking it for service or something.
No, it was a trade-in.
Okay.
Well, yeah, at the time the Jeep belonged to the dealership. It was a trade-in.
Right. Okay. Makes it a little better.
Yeah. Yeah. They fixed it. They brought it back to the dealership. I parked it on the used car lot where it sat till that summer, and they couldn't sell it. So finally, cars.
They knew it tried to kill Clayton Oosterhouse.
Yeah,
it's cursed.
It's a cursed Jeep.
You had to drive it to the auction in Indianapolis. We were in Crawfordsville, Indiana. I had to drive that stupid Jeep to the auction in Indianapolis.
And the whole time you're picturing it's going to end up on its roof any second.
Well, it was a windy day. You're holding the steering wheel straight, and the wind goes blast. And the Jeep.
And the Jeep goes. Rah!
Yeah.
I know.
The steering was loose too, so you go like that with the steering wheel, but the wheels and the wheels on the road wouldn't do anything. Go like that. The steering was loose.
There's a meme that floats around the Jeep groups every so often, and it's just a picture of a Jeep driving down a highway, right? And I think there's like a police car behind it or something. And it says, "Honest officer, I haven't been drinking. It's just a windy day."
Yeah. 60
Officer Oosterhouse
day on Jeeps right around that same time when they showed Jeep going around the corner and the one wheel lifting off the side. So that was Clayton Oosterhouse, and that's why I remember his name, because he was a colorful character, and he lived to tell about that story.
Can we use Oosterhouse as the code name for our next version of REL, maybe?
Sure,
we have to.
Yeah,
we have to now. It's Oosterhouse.
Is it OOOSTER?
I'm not sure he ever knew how to spell it. I know I didn't, but
he has to design his name, and it would be an X.
OOX.
Make your mark. Make your mark, Clayton Oosterhouse.
All right, so I think with the story of Clayton Oosterhouse, we're going to move along into the news. Here we go.
Oh, more music. I got to shut up. Don't talk to the music.
Stop talking, Greg. Nate's going to ban us.
I don't have any rhythm, I've been told.
Okay, so our first news article for tonight is from Dark Reading, and the title of the article is "Cloud Security Architect Proves Hardest InfoSec Role to Fill." So anybody out there who wants to get into InfoSec and knows the tiniest little bit about the cloud should go totally label themselves a cloud security architect and start putting in job applications, because apparently it's a hard role for people to fill.
Wow. But isn't that how horrible things happen? Because people who don't know what they're doing end up in a position.
It is totally a horrible thing. But I mean, if a company won't vet you before they hire you, then that's their own fault, isn't it?
How'd you like to be the cloud security architect for, say, Capital One, say?
Oof.
Yeah,
right. So if we're doing honest confessions, and I don't know if we are, but I'm going to do an honest confession right now.
Go right ahead.
The idea of working and being responsible for security as like my job is absolutely terrifying to me. Like being any sort of manager of InfoSec of any kind, I would have to seriously reconsider before transitioning to that as my career.
So when I was still at the college and I felt like my career there was not going anywhere. I mean, it was still going, but I was not as interested as being there as I used to be for various reasons. I saw really one path ahead of me, and that was I was going to try to get into InfoSec. And so, yes, I completely understand the sentiment you have there, but InfoSec fascinated me, and it still kind of does.
Oh, it's fascinating, but
yeah.
But being the fall guy, because that's what I've seen.
Well, there's
companies I've been at.
There's many different facets of InfoSec. There's red team, there's blue team, and there's lots of things you can do that don't have that weight of responsibility that you're describing.
I'd have to do one of those.
But obviously, as it turned out, this guy that I know had this idea that I was going to go work for Red Hat, and here I am. So
He sounds like an ass.
yeah, he does, doesn't he? Just like imagine what the college thinks of that guy.
Horrible things.
Yeah.
He probably likes show tunes too.
Probably.
Do you want
Probably.
to build a snowman?
So at any rate, that's part of the reason why this show
You
has
wanna come
sort
and
of
play?
has sort of a bend towards security, because both Jason and I are fascinated with information security. So anyway,
Yeah, it is fascinating. I just would never want it to be my job. And
Right.
apparently a lot of people feel the same way because they're having a hard time filling these InfoSec roles.
right. So I guess the question is it hard? Is it because people don't want to do the job, or is it because it's a specific skill set that's hard to fill? Right? I don't know.
Is it the whole must have 10 years of Java programming experience when Java was 2 years old type of situation?
Yeah, right. So it could be. I mean, it could be. I know that InfoSec is a pretty hot job market, or at least it was as little as 6 months ago.
Is it like we want to hire OpenShift professionals, but there just aren't as many OpenShift professionals as there are job openings for them?
Well, that's how InfoSec was at one point. Which is, again, one of the reasons I thought it might be a good career move. But yeah. So, the article goes into a lot of sort of roundabout information about how the cloud is like totally important and not a lot of people are securing it and it's complex and whatever. And that's about all I'm going to say about that. So, cloud security architect, go become cloud security architect certified and you can go find a job, according to Dark Reading.
82, yeah. 82% of respondents prefer to hire candidates with security certifications.
Yeah, so
So
obviously the fix here is that we need another certification that's for cloud security architects, specifically that, and then this won't be a problem anymore.
Yeah.
So maybe what that says is 18% of respondents are idiots.
Could be.
Go find a Chinese website and study the answers. You too can be certified for $100.
Yeah, right.
Anyway.
Depending on where you're getting certified from.
Yeah, don't let me get cynical on you.
Yeah, right.
Let's
right.
get
No,
cynical,
I have a certain hatred towards certification unless it's a practical exam, which, as we know, the Red Hat exams are all nice and practical, which I like.
Yeah.
But let's not be total fanboys here.
No, well, I've said a number of times, even before I worked for Red Hat, that I thoroughly enjoyed taking my RHEL 6 RxCSA and CE exams because they were just like, I get to sit down and solve problems and no services are on the line. This is awesome.
My RHEL 5 cert, I was when I passed that, I was like king of the world, man. I was like Leonardo DiCaprio, and the ship didn't sink, right? It was awesome.
Right.
I remember.
And that was before I was a hatter.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Are there other industry certs that are practical?
Well, it depends on. I mean, there are lots of InfoSec certifications that are very
pilot by passing a multiple choice test. So you probably have.
Yeah. Right.
Well, not pilot. I mean IT.
Wait. Oh, IT. Oh.
Yeah, no, there are InfoSec exams that are very practical, that are very much. What's
like
the name of the word I'm thinking of?
Into this box.
No, like seriously, you have to write exploit code during your exam in order to pass the exam.
Yeah, you pass by breaking into this box and typing in the 20-digit code.
Yeah, right.
Like it's the answer sheet has one box to type in the 20-digit code that you need to break out of this box. I think that would be an awesome exam.
For some reason, I'm having trouble remembering the name of the cert. It'll come to me eventually, but their tagline is "Try harder."
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, at any rate,
yeah.
Our next article is from The Verge, and is Google finally managing its messaging mess? And I was really hoping that this was going to be an article about Google Chat.
About emoticons?
I was really hoping it was going to be about Google Chat because I know you have feelings, Mark, about Google Chat.
Oh, it's a garbage fire. It's a garbage fire. I've said what I think it is, right? It's some intern's project that was half finished, and Google just said, push it to production. And now I have to use it at work.
It's not about emoticons either or emojis. It's actually, there's a whole lot of analogies to Charlie Brown kicking his football and Lucy pulling it out from from in front of him, which fills up a whole lot of the article, which is kind of disappointing. But it's actually about Google trying to solve the SMS versus RCS problem. So I don't know if you're familiar with what RCS is. but it's a replacement for SMS messaging, which is end-to-end encrypted, and a number of other good things.
Like you get iMessaging.
Like you get an iMessaging. Yes. In fact, iMessage might even be RCS. I don't know. I don't know enough about iMessage to know that.
All I know is that when the messages are blue, they're encrypted. When they're green, they're just regular SMS.
Oh, I didn't know that. That makes sense, though. So it's basically when you're chatting with another iPhone user that they're encrypted.
Yeah, when the messages are blue, it's safe. You can talk about anything you want.
So they may be
green,
RCS.
You can't talk about the Anarchist Cookbook when they're green.
Right. The Anarchist Cookbook, that brings back memories. I mean, I don't know what you're talking about, Mark. But this is basically, so carriers, of course, have to support RCS in order for RCS to work end to end, and your platform, which in this case they're talking about Android, has to support it in order for it to be end to end encrypted.
That makes sense, right?
And this is basically they claim that this is because there's so much more attention to messaging security because of the pandemic, but I don't know. I think this was coming anyway. So, yeah. Google is trying to tackle the RCS problem. I'm going to admit that I read about a third of the article because I really got put off by all the stupid Charlie Brown references. So if you want to know more about it, a little more in depth, go read the article. It's from The Verge. Like I said, it's in the show notes. And apparently because I got all of our news from The Verge, the third article for tonight is also from The Verge.
Oh, juicy.
This one sounds like fun. Arizona sues Google over claims it illegally tracked the location of Android users. Now, let's face it.
It's a contact tracing thing right there.
If you have a smartphone, it is constantly calculating where you are. There's no two ways about it. Apple or Android, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. So I am kind of curious why this is targeted directly at Google. They're basically calling out how services like the weather app on your Google device is constantly checking your location.
Well, it has to.
Exactly. That's my point.
You want it to. I don't want Nazareth's weather when I'm in some other state.
Right. It's like,
yeah. I don't want Google to know where I am. I just want turn-by-turn directions from where I am to where I'm going. But
right.
Well, no, but that goes back to Nate's point. Actually, I do want Google to know where I am when I'm running maps. There's implied consent there.
Yeah.
Right.
And what I used to do, and I still do this just out of habit, is I turn off location services for the app unless it's running, mostly to save battery life. I had to do that with my old phone.
Yeah.
And it just became a habit. I'm like, I don't want to burning my data because I have a separate plan for my work phone, and I don't have unlimited data because I guess, barbarian here. So to save data and to save battery life, my apps are only allowed to use the location when they're being run. So every time I open Google Maps, I expect it to know where the hell I am. I check the weather, I expect it to know where I am. So that's the consent.
Yeah.
So the thing is, something like the weather app is constantly updating. I mean, at least on Android, which, like right here. Hold on. Like right there, the top of my screen that you probably can't see, is the temperature and whatnot, because it knows where I am and it knows what the weather is supposed to be near me, right? So that means that it's constantly pulling my location. At least I assume that it is. I would expect it to be, because if I go to a different town or whatever, I would expect it to automatically update based on my location and not just be like, oh, you just spent 3 hours on an airplane and now you're halfway across the country, but I'm still showing you the weather on your home screen for Pennsylvania. Like, that wouldn't make sense, right? So I think there's a certain expectation that, yes, your phone is tracking where you are. What it's doing with that data, I guess, going back to our previous conversation, is the important thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point they're trying to make. They're accusing Google of doing things with that data other than just show you the weather. Now, I don't know that this article goes too deeply into what exactly they think it's doing with that data.
Yeah, we all know they're aggregating it and monetizing it.
You are the product.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what Facebook says. You are the product.
You're not a customer, you're raw material. That's right.
Right. So
you're a resource. Right, Greg? Your favorite thing. You're a resource.
Damn it, Jim! I'm a person, not a resource. Spot.
So
You ever want to get Greg going? Talk about like layoffs and stuff in terms of resources. Oh, it pisses him off.
So the thing I don't really have an answer to is, I mean, how can you possibly expect to use a smartphone and get away from this problem? You know, like,
unless you're going to pay a subscription fee, you can't. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't. Well, even still, it doesn't matter whether it's Google or Apple. Apple's doing the same thing.
Well,
again, it depends what they're doing with the data. Apple has taken a stance where they side with the user and protecting their privacy. Google obviously doesn't really have that stance.
your phone knows where it is.
Yeah.
My phone knows it's here in my hand right here. That part we're all okay with. The part we're not all okay with is my phone. My phone is telling Google every few minutes where it is.
Right.
So Google knows where I am. Google does not need to know where I am for this phone to do turn-by-turn directions.
Right.
But that's the price I pay so that I can get turn-by-turn directions anytime I want without.
Right. But if I'm the Google, I'm sorry, Nate.
No, go ahead. You started before.
If I'm the Google Maps guy, I'm going to say, actually, Greg, I do need to know where your phone is because we aggregate the data of where the phones are to try and figure out traffic volume so that we can give you better turn-by-turn directions.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you think Google Maps knows the road's busy? Pixies?
That is. Yeah. Right. No, there's totally Google Pixies that fly around and look at the traffic. Isn't that how that works? That's how they get all the street view pictures too.
That's all that's the drones. The drones do a couple of things. The drones take pictures of the traffic so Google Maps knows.
Yeah.
And they spray chemtrails on the population to keep them addicted to social media.
And they broadcast 5G
They broadcast 5G to turn the frogs gay. Come on. And they accidentally changed the 5G frequency from turn frogs gay to cause COVID-19.
Yeah,
a guy admitted that on Facebook. He was a Verizon technician. He admitted it.
Oh, really? I hadn't heard that. That's breaking news right there.
It was breaking news.
Came right from the source.
He turned the dial from make frogs gay to cause COVID-19.
Wow.
On the 5G control towers.
It's terrible.
Yeah, well, you got a point though about knowing where the traffic is. That's as good of a source as any. And
I like that because I hate traffic.
Yeah, right.
Really? I want Google to tell me go this way instead.
I love traffic. I live for waiting in traffic. If I can wait in line at the DMV, that just makes my day. And then waiting in a traffic jam on the way, it just doesn't get any better than that.
I knew there was something weird about you. So the thing I was trying to say earlier when Mark and I tried to talk over each other was this isn't new, right? So your cell provider / back in the day pager provider could locate your pager based on what towers it's pinging off of, right? So this isn't a new problem. I remember I knew a girl back when I was in high school. Her parents bought her a pager, right? And she's all excited that she bought a pager. The reason they bought her that pager is because she had a habit of running away and they wanted to be able to find her.
Oh.
Right? So the phone company has been able to get this data for a very long time. It's just all of a sudden now it's in front of you because there's a display on your smartphone that says you're right here.
So
right?
All she has to do is turn her pager off.
Oh, yeah. She figured that out pretty quick.
Yeah. Trace the call. Trace the call.
Not a fool.
People on the line.
Yeah. She was not a good influence on my life. But anyway,
I know that. I know the feeling.
Right. So, looks like I have a visitor again.
When you're finished, can you help me download this since it's free?
Okay, I will help you with it in a little bit. We're almost done. Okay, come on.
Sit
No, go back over to Monkey. Okay. Speaking of Android devices.
Yes.
So anyway, on to the next article, which is also
on the Verge.
From the Verge. Let's see. Oh, this is actually I have some feelings about this one. Google search results will take page experience into account next year. So the gist of this article is that Google is going to start ranking your site in Google search results based on the page experience. And there's a number of things that go into that. One of things like page load time and whatnot, and I assume accessibility and whatnot.
Ooh.
So these are all things that are going to be theoretically starting to go into ranking your page in Google results. So you may have very relevant data based on what people are searching for, but you may not get listed at the top of the results unless your page is also accessible and loads fast and whatever.
Oh, I learned a tough lesson about page load speeds. If you're using the Divi WordPress theme, there's a little slider on off deal about static CSS, and you really want to turn on static CSS to help your page load time. So if anybody out there is running a Divi website, make sure that static CSS is turned on, except when you're doing development work, then turn it off. But when it's
Yeah, there's certainly things you can do to make your page load faster. The thing that I have feelings about is the web was sort of designed to be an open playing field, level playing field, you might even say, right?
Not
where anyone who has an opinion on something or anyone who has information they want to share can put it out there on the web, and I feel like this ruins that. I mean, yes, there's other things that have already ruined that, but it's just one more nail in that coffin.
So, I'll just challenge you a little bit on that. You remember the pandemic thing that went around 2 or 3 weeks ago? Yeah. That lady proved to be less than reliable.
Never.
Never.
Yeah. Everybody
Greg starts a flame war. Greg starts a flame war. Okay.
That's what we do. You can't.
I didn't watch the video.
Yeah.
I'm assuming people I respect say it's hooey, so I'm going to assume it's hooey.
I did watch it. Yeah, I watched it, and I got to say that it was produced in such a way that it felt believable, so I can understand why people are believing it.
Yeah, it was well done. It was good quality video. It was interviews. She dressed nice. It even had poses of both of them walking through an office building.
Oh yes, very believable.
Yeah.
It looked great. It was bullshit, but it looked great.
Yeah,
correct.
Right.
Yep.
Just proves that anybody with Adobe Premiere can make a decent looking video.
Yep. And she said stuff from someone who claimed to be a former insider who knew Fauci and knew all the players who were today shots with
this scientician
there when it started.
This scientician.
It was a believable story. And
anyway, you're going somewhere with this.
Yeah.
Greg's always going somewhere.
Yeah. Usually it's crazy. People say, Greg, what state do you live in? And I usually say confusion, but that's different.
But
this lady's book rocketed to #1 on the Amazon bestseller list because of that movie, because of that BS that she spread, but it looked good. And so
you're not suggesting that she did this to sell books, do you?
Would I suggest such a thing?
Or are you? That's the word I'm trying to say.
Let me put it a different way. I wrote a blog post about it. I'm going to change my marketing. Forget everything I said about my books before. My books tell you stuff that they don't want you to hear.
Right.
Them.
Yeah. There's 2 classes of people in this world. There's us and them, and you don't want to be one of them.
The lizard people.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, this lady makes this video, and it creates this huge firestorm around the world. Like boom! Like all of a sudden, go search for it now. You won't find it in any research results anywhere.
That's because they're stifling the truth. Truth.
Yeah. Them again. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, so this thing about Google and the page experience and stuff like that, it doesn't feel like a big deal to me because there's already so many impediments out there for who gets visibility and who doesn't. It's no different than the rest of society.
I still feel like it's just one more thing, right? That makes it harder. It makes it harder for that guy who just wants to run a machine in his basement to share his cat pictures on his own server.
Wow.
his or her own server, I should say, because that's a thing that's how I got started, right? I had a machine in my parents' basement that I ran a web server on. The website was horrible. It looked ugly. Nobody probably ever wanted to visit it.
The animated GIF of the under construction guy.
That was probably there at one point.
I read a website in my basement to this very day, right? This my website, it's in my basement.
Right. So I mean, the point was that if I had some useful information on my site that someone searched for, they had sort of equally amount of chance of finding my page as they would, somebody else who maybe had a much better machine or a much faster loading website or a much cleaner looking website that might have had the same data with a different viewpoint, right? And that's slowly going away. You know? I mean, there was a point when a search engine was literally just a thing that returned results. It didn't try to rank them. It didn't try to find relevance. Now, I get it that there's value in all of those things. And the internet's probably a better place for it. But I just feel bad for 19-year-old me who would have been fighting this, right, to try to get his website up and running. So,
yeah. Yoast is helpful, and then that other one that I haven't looked at yet. There, I forget the name of it. That one's supposed to be helpful too.
What are these site?
Yoast SEO. It's a WordPress plugin, and there's a whole. Yoast has a whole website with a bunch of free SEO stuff.
Yeah,
optimization stuff.
Right, but so basically, what it's turning into is who can craft the best SEO, not who has the most relevant data.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
so
it's been that way for at least 10 years.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying it makes me sad.
Yeah. The era of the innocent internet ended a long time ago. Probably a long time ago. It's billion people connected to it, and some of them are bad guys, and it's just human nature again.
Yeah. So our next article is not from The Verge. It's from Forbes. Which is, I don't know.
That's some people have blog site, isn't it?
Some people have feelings.
Magazine.
Some people have feelings about Forbes, one of which might be on the show right now.
Maybe.
And I did read this article, but to be honest, it's like left my brain at the moment because it's that good. Basically, the title is "Google just gave millions of users a reason to quit Chrome," and in summary, that reason is in the first paragraph here. In a bold new report via ZDNet, Google engineers have revealed that unsafe code within Chrome is responsible for 70% of its security vulnerabilities and 125 of the 130 critical bugs found in the browser over the last year. Now, hang on, I'm going to stop you before you respond. Aren't all security vulnerabilities and all critical bugs related to bad code, unsafe code? Isn't that kind of a broad statement?
This is a surprise. Remember when we used to read articles like this about Internet Explorer and Chrome was the new kid on the block?
Chrome was the answer, right?
Yeah.
Right. I still use Firefox.
So they pull a pick your politician of choice here and blame something ridiculous. By the way, I don't know if you read that paragraph.
Do tell.
So I'm gonna read the paragraph and just let the stupidity wash over you.
Tell me.
The engineers specifically lay the blame on C and C++, 48 and 35-year-old programming languages, respectively. So somehow an old programming language is inherently bad, which
it could be.
They don't come with restrictions or warnings to prevent or alert developers when they're making basic memory management errors. These early coding errors result in memory management vulnerabilities being introduced in applications. So because you have stupid developers, that's somehow C's fault?
Totally. It's totally C's fault.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, C and C++ don't have the guardrails that they expect life to have, is what you're saying.
So apparently you're dealing with idiot programmers who learned on Java or something and then never learned how pointers work. Or whatever, and now they have to deal with the big boy programming language, and they're in trouble.
Yeah, You mentioned politics, though.
I was gonna make a crack that I'm just not gonna make because the same gland that stops me right as I'm about to do a Facebook political post kicked in, and like don't go there. So
that's probably a good idea.
But that paragraph on its own is ridiculous enough without having to draw analogies or metaphors.
It is.
Blame C.
Blame C.
Yeah, they don't do comments on those articles. Huh.
Were you about to leave a comment?
Oh, I was thinking about it.
Hi, this is Greg hosting the Iron Sysadmin podcast, and
some of that angry typing that we're
your article is stupid. Bye.
So basically, this whole thing is a smack on C and C++, and gushing about Rust, which is what they're saying Firefox is written in, a safety-focused programming language. I guess it wears a mask, which is specifically designed to be memory safe.
They should do all this stuff with Deck Fortran.
So I mean, here's the thing, though, right? Playing devil's advocate for a second. If you have a programming language that has guardrails that prevents you from writing bad code, doesn't that mean that it could theoretically produce a better product? Right.
So better is subjective. So what's one thing that there's a couple things I remember when Chrome hit the market. And one of the things that I remember being a big deal about Chrome was its performance.
Mm-hmm.
So
right.
It's fast. It's a fast browser. So programming languages, there are safe programming languages. There are programming languages that don't allow you to have the shenanigans that C and C++ have. Instead, you get something like Java, which every so often slows everything down with a garbage collection because it has to clean up after all those allocated bits of memory that the programmer doesn't have to worry about. But eventually, the piper must be paid, right?
Right.
So every programming language has its advantages and disadvantages. In my day, the argument was, do we use an interpreted language, which allows for very fast debugging, or a compiled language? The compiled language is hard, and it has to run through the compilation process, and then you can't. The code that's running is machine code as opposed to the source code, which is the same code I'm looking at and can debug live, but the interpreted code was slower. And this was like BASIC and Pascal on the Apple II.
Right.
So every programming language does come with its pros and with its cons. So, but what I'm seeing here is that if you're a programmer, if I'm going to call myself a programmer, it is my responsibility to understand the tools of my trade well enough that I don't write bad code. There's a reason the Linux kernel is written in C and not in Rust or Java or Ruby or some other language.
Yeah.
If you're a welder, you should be able to make a strong weld with the cheap little crappy welder that you can buy at Harbor Freight or the $10,000, ESAB or whatever, right? Because you're supposed to be a professional. Yeah, I get the point.
This paragraph it
just bothers me.
It doesn't. What memory management errors are they talking about?
Well,
am I calling some illegal address somewhere? Am I taking a bad page fault? Spectre meltdown stuff.
So have you programmed in C, Greg? And this is not me being a smart ass. Have you programmed in C?
No, actually, I haven't.
So the concept, and I'm a terrible C programmer, and I haven't in years. But one of the things you're supposed to do is you're supposed to use the malloc command to allocate memory allocation, and you're supposed to clean up after yourself when you're done. Right. Also, you can play games in C where a pointer is essentially a kind of variable that points at a memory address. Mm-hmm. So the contents of the pointer are not the data you want. It's actually the memory location where the data you want lives.
Yep.
So you can make a mistake, and a bug can involve, for instance, acting on the contents of the pointer itself and manipulating that rather than the actual data you're trying to get to.
Yep.
And that's for instance how the pointer can suddenly point to an invalid memory location because the programmer screwed up and made a mistake. It's also and when you're not allocating and deallocating memory properly, that can lead to like bugs around memory leaks.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, that makes
So
memory.
So I have a TAM customer.
That's just lazy programmers.
Yeah.
You're right.
I have a TAM customer who one of his passions is cars.
Mhm.
And he is passionate about manual transmissions.
Mm-hmm.
He believes that is the best way to operate a vehicle because it gives you the most control and the most accuracy and everything else.
He sounds like a smart man.
And I used to drive stick all the time, and my wife never learned, and so all my cars are now automatic and whatever.
Mhm.
And you can make the argument that today's automatic transmissions are super smooth, they're super great, they're awesome,
and reliable.
They
didn't used to be.
They didn't used to be, right? But they're like a modern language with all the safety rails. Stick shifts, you can do crazy things with a manual transmission, but you can have better performance of the vehicle, and that's like programming in C or C++.
Right, you can do things like skip a gear or downshift quickly or whatever, where the automatic transmission won't allow you to do that. Yeah.
No, it won't let you do that at all.
You want to know how to teach people about indirect addressing? This is the coolest thing in the world. I did this. I put you take a picture of a tree, and you put a sign in just a piece of paper in the tree, and the piece of paper right on the piece of paper, and you got to do it in a big marker so you can see it with the camera. Get your pie at grandma's house. So the idea is go to the tree to find your pie, and there's a sign that says.
Well, that's how pointers in C work. It's indirect addressing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And instead of going for the pie, you're grabbing the sign, the letters on the sign and calculating on them.
It's a scavenger hunt.
Yeah,
I do like pie.
Yeah.
I don't like having to walk far to get it though. So this is not a good analogy to me.
Yeah. About 3.14 of them or so.
And I promised we were going to talk about 5G, and here it comes.
Are we going to really talk about 5G, or are we going to talk about how it gives us diseases and stuff?
This article is from Ars Technica.
Frog's gay.
This article is from Ars Technica, and neither Mark nor I can remember adding it to the show notes. So somebody, maybe Jason did. I don't know.
I remember someone. It had to be one of the other hosts, but this article was also linked in the TAM IRC channel today at work.
Yeah, and I saw it.
Anti 5G device is just 128 megabyte USB.
Yes. So if you can remember the days of Y2K when people were selling Y2K detectors that were just a flashing light.
Oh, this is great.
Or if you can remember, I don't know, there's probably 100 times in history, like I'm selling my copper sculpture of what is it, Lincoln, and they send you a penny, right?
Yeah, it goes with the left-handed smoke shifter.
Yeah, the good old
McGregor divots. You don't want Spalding divots, you want McGregor divots. Yeah.
The good old false advertising. So apparently, and I didn't thoroughly read this one as usual, but someone is apparently selling a USB device that is supposed to be an anti-5G device for all those people that are worried about being infected with their 5G.
It's a USB key with a sticker on it.
It's a USB key. Not only is it a USB key, it's a 128 meg USB stick.
With a sticker on it.
I haven't had a 128 meg USB stick since like 2001.
Fortunately, you can use your 5 gig BioShield without disabling your Wi-Fi. The USB key doesn't block Wi-Fi, the company says. It says the product transmutes the signals and harmonizes all harmful frequencies into life-affirming frequencies. Oh, this is great! This is. Oh, I am so gonna put this on Facebook. This is. Oh wow!
This is awesome.
I'm gonna buy a bridge over to the Arizona coastline here too.
Maybe you could reach back to that Nigerian prince and get that money so you could buy a bunch of these and hand them out.
Oh, this is.
When plugged into our test machine, we may have missed the bubble of quantum holographic catalyzer technology appearing. The stick comes loaded with a 25-page PDF version of the material from 5G BioShield's website. it included a Q&A of
And so
the distances for the bubble.
Anna Grochowski just doubled. She just doubled down. She's the BioShield distribution director, and she told the BBC, "We're in possession of a great deal of technical information with plenty of backup historical research, and are not authorized to fully disclose all the sensitive information to third parties for obvious reasons."
Oh my gosh!
Oh, so now I got to Google this scam artist. Oh,
it says apparently it's always working, whether it's powered on or not.
Oh,
so no visual checks are needed. Review of the stick's properties revealed nothing more than what you'd expect from a regular 128 meg USB key.
One person
weren't even sure that 128. Oh, we weren't even sure that 128s were still in production.
Probably not.
It's probably just big enough to hold the PDF.
Probably.
It's probably just it probably bought out some warehouse somewhere.
Yeah, right. Someone that had a bunch of 128 just laying around. I mean, they're probably from like 2005 when these things were no longer a thing that anybody was buying.
I suspect that this whole product was the brainchild of Clayton Uferhouse.
Company says research is too sensitive to disclose.
Clayton, man, if you're out there, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It is the brainchild of Clayton Uferhouse.
Yeah. One person who does take the 5G BioShield claim seriously is Toby Hall, one of the members of the Glastonbury Town Council's 5G Advisory Committee. Hall told the BBC that he felt a calmer feel to the home when using 5G BioShield. Hall said he has no regrets about buying it, and since plugging it in, had felt beneficial effects, including being able to sleep through the night and having more dreams.
My God. Here's another testimonial for you, Chris, who called 5G BioShield an incredible product, is quoted saying, "I noticed my field reaching coherence and eliminating the frantic energy. Most importantly, it has enabled me to access a higher vibration and help the the pineal gland." What?
I should get me one of those and that can help me get in touch with my feelings.
This is just amazing stuff. Oh, there's
on Facebook.
This one does support comments. Maybe we should read some comments.
I'll bet there's some good ones. That's a great article. Thanks for finding that.
It's too late for us, Greg.
This is
because Adam
Russell. No way I'm buying this thing until I hear what Gwyneth Paltrow's opinion is on this.
Oh, right.
Well, we apparently missed the boat because Adam Russell heard that it can prevent baldness. So,
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I better get one.
Yeah, you know what?
Before it's too late.
We're all stuck inside. We can't do haircuts, right? I mean, that's just part of the thing. My wife cut my hair a little bit, but here's a thing I didn't notice. I don't know if you can see this on the camera or not. There's about 135 hairs up on top there. They're real fine. You can't really see them. But
wait a second. Wait.
Huh.
Greg.
What?
On Friday's GCS Connect, you said it was 137.
Did I?
Did you lose two?
I pulled two of them out. You squeeze them hard enough, you just yank them right out. It hurts a little bit, but then then it's okay.
Wow. So anyway,
137.
If you want to be protected from the 5Gs, now I didn't notice anywhere in the article that they mentioned it as protecting you from COVID, just 5G. Apparently 5G is a demon all in itself.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's spreading 5G or not. But if you want to be protected from the 5G, go spend $350 on this 128 meg.
Well, because the 5G can cause whatever illness the phone company wants it to cause at any given time. They have a dial. It's like that Bugs Bunny episode, with the saucer that Wile E. Coyote has, and it's set to rabbit, and then Bugs Bunny sticks his head out of his hole, and he's got a rooster mask on, and he takes a permanent marker and writes coyote, and then turns the dial to that. Yeah.
5G. It will
I love
curb
Bugs
your
Bunny.
spine, bend your mind, and lose the war for the Allies.
Ay, ay, ay.
That's right out of George Carlin. A little bit adapted.
So, at any rate, I think that's it for tonight's show. Thank you, folks, for sticking with us this long. Those of you that are watching live, and thank you, any of you that are listening this long on the audio-only version, because I'm sure it's quite the ride.
You're lovely people.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for having me on. I had a
Yep.
blast.
Oh, it's been fun. It's been fun.
I am
So,
going to post that 5G article on Facebook.
So,
and
folks,
I
if,
shall follow it.
if you want to watch this train wreck live, you can do so on the second and fourth Thursday of every month at roughly 7:00 Eastern time. You can follow the show, you can do so via YouTube, youtube.com/Iron Sysadmin podcast. If you want to chat with us directly, you can join our Slack workspace at ironsysadmin.com/Slack. Take you right to the invite link. You can find us on Twitter and Facebook. You just search for Iron Sysadmin and you'll find us. And you can subscribe to us wherever you would normally subscribe to podcasts. And for those of you who are not already, you can certainly go support us via Patreon, patreon.com/Iron Sysadmin, so I can buy that awesome new mixer that I talked about.
Nate, despite all of my begging, refuses to give us a presence on LiveJournal. I feel we're missing out on a huge audience.
Greg's just attained ninja levels of stealth.
All right, so I'm about to play the outro music so that Greg can talk over it.
Greg, your beard looks like a goat armpit when you let it grow.
Let it grow, let it grow.
That's the new outro music, is you singing. All right, folks. So those of you watching us live, thanks for hanging out with us. And I hope you had as much fun as we did on the show. And we will catch you on the next one.
On the flip,
Good night, everybody.
if you will.